At Christmas, my parents turned my 11-year-old away at the door. She had to walk home alone, carrying every gift she'd brought, and spend the holiday in an empty house. When I found out, I didn't shout. I acted. 5 hours later, their perfect little holiday began to unravel. I got home late on Christmas night, expecting an empty house. My daughter was supposed to be at my parents' big dinner, cousins, the sleepover she'd been counting down to for days, like it was the main event of the century. But the first thing I noticed wasn't the missing chaos, it was the smell. Something burnt. Not a toast got away from you burnt, but someone tried to make something special and it went wrong burnt. I stepped into the kitchen and saw it immediately, a pan on the stove, darkened with ruined contents. A plate on the table. A little trail of crumbs leading away, like someone had been tiptoeing around, trying not to make a sound. And then my stomach dropped, her shoes, her coat. My 11-year-old was home. Emma, I called. Hey, she answered immediately, sitting at the kitchen table in the same clothes she'd worn when I dropped her off. Her shoulders were tucked in, as if trying to take up less space in her own home. She wasn't crying, not dramatic, just small. I stared at her, trying to make reality line up. You're supposed to be at Grandma and Grandpa's, I said. I know, she said, her voice flat, too practiced. Why are you here? I asked, keeping my tone calm on purpose. They turned me away. My brain froze. Turned you away? I repeated. At the door. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her plate. They said there wasn't enough space. I blinked at her. Space for what? She looked at me like I'd asked why snow is cold. For me. That's when I noticed the gifts, neatly lined up by the entryway, bags upright, tags still attached, tissue paper fluffed perfectly, like she couldn't stand the idea of them looking messy. Even now, the gifts she'd been so proud of. The gifts we had dropped off with her, sent back home. My throat tightened. Why are the gifts here? I asked. They didn't want them, she said quietly. They told you to bring them back? I asked, my chest going cold. She nodded once. I looked at her face, trying to keep my own steady, and asked the question that really mattered. Why didn't you call me? Her eyes flicked down. My phone had died, she whispered. I asked Grandma if I could use theirs, the house phone. Even as she said it, I already knew. She said no, Emma said, her voice cracking on the last word. She said it would just make it harder. And you were busy. Busy, right? Then, she added quietly, Grandpa said I should just walk home, as if it were the most normal solution in the world. Because, you know, it's not far. I stared at her. Not far, if you're an adult who knows the neighborhood, not carrying gift bags that dig into your hands, not 11, not Christmas, and not passing window after window with people inside, celebrating, while you're outside. How long did you walk? I asked. Maybe 20 minutes, she said softly. I didn't really know which way at first because we always drive. Something sharp twisted under my ribs and stayed there. I glanced back at the stove, then at the plate in front of her. And this? I asked gently. You tried to cook? Her cheeks flushed like she'd been caught doing something wrong. I got hungry, she whispered. Anne. I wanted to. I don't know, make it feel like Christmas. Her words hit me harder than the door shutting. I watched a video, she added quickly, like she needed to explain herself. I tried. It just burned. She pointed at the pan. It's fine. I opened the window, letting in cold air. The fact that she was trying to reassure me, as if she were the problem, made my throat ache. I pulled out a chair and sat beside her. Start from the beginning, I said gently. She took a shaky breath. You dropped me off and I went right up, she said, like you told me. I nodded. Grandma opened the door and, my eyes slid away. She looked surprised, like she forgot I was coming. My jaw tightened. Then Aunt Dana said, "Oh, just oh." Emma's mouth twisted. And Grandma said it was a full house, not enough chairs. What about the cousins? I asked, already bracing myself. They were inside, she whispered. They could see me. She swallowed hard. Anyway. Logan laughed and said something about her dress looking like a curtain. The word curtain came out bitter. And nobody stopped him? I asked carefully. Emma shook her head. Grandpa said, "Let's not start drama." I let out a short, bitter breath through my nose. Dry humor when rage is too big to hold. Right. Because letting an 11-year-old inside would have been real drama. Emma gave a tiny, miserable half-smile. It disappeared immediately. I tried to give Grandma her gift, she whispered. The one I made. My eyes snapped to her. The ornament? She nodded, and then the tears finally slipped, like her face had been tired of pretending. I put her name on it, she said. She hadn't even touched it, she just heard, "Not now." A sob hit her like a hiccup. She turned her face away quickly, embarrassed by her own feelings, as if she were the one who had done something wrong. I slid my arm around her shoulders and pulled her close. She leaned into me immediately, like she'd been holding herself upright on stubbornness alone. "I'm sorry," she whispered into my sweater. "No," I said firmly. "You don't apologize for this." She sniffed. "I ruined Christmas." "You didn't ruin anything," I said. "They did." She wiped her face on her sleeve and stared at the plate in front of her. "I tried," she whispered. "I really tried." And just like that, the heartbreak of the whole evening was condensed into one sentence. She had tried to create Christmas for herself in an empty house because the people who were supposed to love her decided she didn't deserve a chair. I didn't shout. I didn't call my mother to start a screaming match. Emma didn't need that. She didn't need to feel like she'd caused a war. So, I swallowed it. Every sharp word. I held Emma a little tighter. And in that quiet moment, something clicked into place. I didn't make a scene. I took action. 5 hours later, their world started to unravel. I wish I could tell you my parents became like this overnight. That would be comforting in a way, like they'd caught some virus called entitlement and woke up one morning unable to recognize their own granddaughter. But this wasn't new. It just finally had the audacity to show its face in public. My sister Dana had always been the favorite. Not in a subtle, parents love you differently way, but on the openly displayed scoreboard on the fridge kind of way. Dana was older, louder, easier for them. She was the kid they wanted. I was the kid who showed up later, like an unexpected bill. When I was little, my mother used to say things like, "You're so much work." The way some people say, "This suitcase is heavy." Not cruel, exactly. Worse, casual. Like it was a fact of nature. Like needing care was a character flaw. By the time I was old enough to understand tone, I understood mine, a burden. And then I got pregnant, young, unplanned. The father barely qualified as present for the parts of life that actually require a human being. He was there just enough to make promises, then vanish like smoke. I never walked into my parents' house asking them to fund my life. I didn't have the energy for it. I was too busy being terrified. But they treated me like I'd already sent them an invoice. My father's first reaction was, "So what? We're supposed to pay for this?" My mother's was, "You're ruining this family." As if my pregnancy had personally set fire to their curtains. They bought me a onesie once. One. My mother held it up like she'd sponsored a small village. "See," she told relatives. "We help her." Then she went back to her life. Dana, of course, played the part of concerned sister. She showed up with advice and disappeared the second anything required actual effort. She'd cry when it made her look good. She'd talk about sacrifices she never made. I moved out. I raised Emma alone. I postponed college. I worked an office job because I needed steady hours and a paycheck that didn't bounce. I took evening classes when I could. The kind of survival where you eat dinner out of a plastic container in your car and pretend that's normal. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't supposed to be. It was survival. And if I'm honest, survival suited me better than begging. The one person who didn't treat me like a mistake was my grandmother, Ruth. She never asked why I wasn't more careful. She never made me apologize for needing help. She just showed up in the ways she could. Grandma wasn't perfect. She was blunt, frugal to the point of comedy. She once told me, if you buy something full price, you deserve what happens to you, like it was a moral principle. But in a family that treated love like a limited resource, she was love itself. As she got older, she developed leg issues, pain, weakness, the kind that makes even short distances feel like mountains. Her mind stayed sharp. She could still roast you with one sentence. But moving around became harder. And my parents? They treated her like an inconvenience. They'd call to check in and then brag about it. They'd visit once a month, snap a photo, post it with captions like family is everything, and then leave, never to come back. Dana was the same. If Grandma was a person, Dana forgot she existed. If Grandma was an inheritance, suddenly Dana cared deeply. I was the one who drove Grandma to appointments, brought groceries, and learned how to help her safely so she wouldn't fall when she stood up. I even took a short caregiving course because I was tired of guessing when it came to someone I loved. It saved money. It made me useful. It made Grandma feel less helpless, which mattered more than any certification. And the more time I spent with her, the more I noticed something uncomfortable. My parents treated Grandma the way they treated me, like a burden, like a task, like something to tolerate until they could return to their real lives. Meanwhile, Grandma helped them financially, quietly, the way she did everything, without fanfare, without splashing it around. At some point, my parents moved into a house everyone in the family referred to as the house Grandma gave them. That phrase became gospel. Grandma gave them the house. Grandma gifted it. She wanted them to have space for family. My parents started talking about it like it was theirs by divine right. And after they got it, they visited her even less. It was almost impressive how they treated generosity like a completion stamp. Once she gave, she had no further value. Grandma, meanwhile, lived in a small rental by choice. She said it was easier, less to clean, less to worry about. She didn't want a big house to manage on her own. She liked comfort, not attention. And that's why Christmas mattered. Grandma couldn't join the big celebration this year. Her legs were worse. The thought of a crowded house, stairs, and chaos was too much. My parents didn't offer to go to her. They didn't offer to bring dinner. They didn't even suggest FaceTiming her until I brought it up. So, I chose her. And I chose Emma, too, by giving her the big family Christmas she'd been dreaming of. My parents' house had always been fancy and organized in the way Emma loved, friends invited, games, cookies, a cousin sleepover that felt like a rite of passage. Emma put her whole heart into those gifts. She saved. She made things. She worried about what people would like. She was proud of it. She didn't mind me not coming, because to her it was still family. That's what made it so crushing when they told her she should celebrate with someone else. Not enough chairs. Not enough space. Not enough room for her. And while they sat around their table, satisfied with their perfect Christmas, they didn't realize what was already beginning to unravel. That night, I had 2 jobs, get my daughter back to herself, and keep my parents from doing any more damage while she was still bleeding on the inside. Emma wasn't dramatic about it. That was the problem. She moved through our kitchen like she was trying not to disturb the air, like she didn't deserve to take up space in her own house. I didn't lecture her about the stove. I didn't point at the burnt pan like it was Exhibit A in why you shouldn't cook alone. We could talk about safety later. Tonight, the bigger emergency was shame. So I did what moms do when the right words don't exist. I made hot chocolate, extra marshmallows because trauma is not the time to practice moderation, and pretended I wasn't furious enough to chew through drywall. Emma sat at the table with her mug between her hands like it was the only warm thing left in the world. Every few minutes, her eyes drifted to the gifts lined up by the door, still perfect, still unwanted. I kept catching myself thinking, I should drive over there. I should knock. I should make them say it to my face. And then I'd look at my daughter's shoulders, how tight they were, how small she'd made herself, and I'd swallow it. I wasn't going to turn her night into the soundtrack of a screaming match. Then my phone buzzed. Grandma Ruth. Not a long, chatty call. Grandma Ruth didn't do long and chatty unless she was giving advice I didn't ask for. She did check-ins. Practical, efficient. I answered and put it on speaker because my hands were busy, and because Emma's whole face lifted just hearing the ringtone. Hey, Grandma, put me where I can see you, she said immediately. No. Hello? Grandma didn't waste time on greetings when she could be efficient with love. So I switched to video. Grandma appeared on my screen, glasses perched on her nose, that look she always got when she was about to correct someone's pronunciation. Emma leaned toward the phone like it was a window. Merry Christmas, Great-Grandma, she said, trying so hard to sound normal that it made my throat tighten. Grandma's face softened. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Emma smiled. It lasted half a second. Then it wobbled, and the tears came anyway, quiet, stubborn tears. She didn't want anyone to see. Grandma didn't miss it. Grandma never missed it. What happened? She asked, calm but sharp, like her brain had already started putting the pieces together. Emma glanced at me with that panicked look kids give when they're trying not to get anyone in trouble. And then the truth broke free anyway. They wouldn't let me in, she whispered. Grandma's expression went still. Who? Grandma and Grandpa, Emma said, her voice cracking. They said there wasn't space, and they didn't take the gifts. Grandma blinked slowly, the kind of blink that means she's choosing her words carefully because she doesn't want to start a fire, literally or metaphorically. Emma wiped her face quickly. I tried to use their phone, she added, as if she needed to justify herself. Mine had died. I asked. They said no. Grandma's mouth tightened. And you walked home? Emma nodded. Grandpa said it wasn't far. Grandma didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She looked straight at my daughter through the screen and said, Sweetheart, you listen to me. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. Emma made a small sound, like she wanted to crawl inside those words and live there. Grandma continued, You were polite. You brought gifts. You showed up. If anyone should be ashamed, it's the people who shut a child out at their door. Emma's chin trembled. I pulled her closer, and she leaned into me like she'd been holding herself up on pride alone. Grandma's gaze flicked to me. Kate, she said. Yes, I answered, already bracing. Her voice sharpened. I gave them that house so they'd have space for family. Space for family. I didn't interrupt. I didn't steer. I didn't feed her lines. I just sat there, holding my child, letting Grandma connect her own dots. Her eyes narrowed, and in that quiet space, the audacity of turning my great-grandchild away became undeniable. I felt my stomach drop, because when Grandma got quiet, consequences followed. I won't allow it, she said. Grandma, I started automatically, trying not to light a match near gasoline. No, she cut in. My legs hurt. That's all. My brain works. I know, I said softly. Grandma's voice went even calmer. I'm going to undo it. I blinked. Undo what? The house, she said. I stared at the screen. Grandma, you can't ungift a house. Her lips twitched barely. You'd be surprised what you can do when people don't read paperwork. It sounded like a riddle. It sounded like a promise. Emma sniffed and wiped her face again, trying to pull herself together like she hadn't just been told she didn't deserve a chair. Grandma softened. Finish your cocoa, she said gently. And next Christmas, you'll be where you belong. Emma nodded, small and careful. We ended the call a minute later. Grandma told Emma she loved her. Grandma told me to lock my doors. She never missed an opportunity to assume the world was full of criminals, including my parents. After that, I focused on the only thing that mattered, getting my daughter through the rest of the night without letting that shame set like concrete. We watched a movie. We sat under a blanket. Emma fell asleep in that exhausted way kids do when they've held themselves together for too long. Then, before midnight, before my brain could even process Grandma's paperwork comment, my phone rang again. Mom. I answered, and she didn't even take a breath first. What did you do? No. Hello? No. Is Emma okay? Pure panicked rage. I held the phone away from my ear. What are you talking about? Don't play stupid. Grandma called us on Christmas. She says the house isn't ours and we have to move out. My stomach dropped hard. What? I said, genuinely. You think this is funny? She shrieked. While we were all celebrating, you went over there to poison her against us. I didn't, I said. You're a snake, she spat. You've always been jealous. You've always wanted what we have. I stared at the dark kitchen, at the burnt pan, at the gifts lined up like silent witnesses. I don't know what Grandma told you, I said carefully. But I didn't plan anything. I didn't even know. Oh, please, my mother snapped. You've been circling her like a vulture. Something in me went cold and clean. My daughter came home tonight, I said low. She was turned away at your door. She walked home alone with gifts you refused to take. There was a pause, a half-second of silence where I could almost hear her brain searching for a way to make that not matter. Then she hissed, "Don't change topics." Of course you excluded a child, I said. On Christmas. We didn't have enough chairs, she snapped. And she was fine. You're raising her to be dramatic, just like you. She stood outside your door, I said, each word measured. And you wouldn't even let her use your phone. My mother's voice rose. You should have kept her with you then. You're the one who abandoned her. The audacity was almost impressive. Then she said it like it had been sitting on her tongue for years, waiting. We should have excluded you a long time ago. Like Emma's Christmas was just collateral damage in some larger project to punish me for existing. I said quietly, you're not going to rewrite what you did. My mother laughed, sharp and ugly. You think you've won? You think Grandma is stable? Then, in a voice that made my skin crawl, she added, we'll handle her. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, staring at my phone like it had turned into an animal. Grandma had said she would undo something. My mother was terrified. My daughter was asleep down the hall, faint tear tracks still on her cheeks. And I still didn't fully understand how any of this was possible, only that something had started moving, and my parents were already trying to grab the wheel. The next morning, I called Grandma Ruth. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. That alone didn't send me into a panic spiral immediately. Grandma was many things. Tech-savvy wasn't one of them. Sometimes she'd leave her phone in a drawer and forget the drawer existed. But still, it didn't sit right in my stomach. I tried again. Still no answer. Emma came into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, hair sticking up like she'd fought a pillow and lost. Did Great-Grandma call? She asked softly. No, I said, keeping my voice light. Not yet. Emma's mouth tightened. Is she mad at me? My heart clenched. No, baby. No, none of this is your fault. Emma nodded, like she wanted to believe me, but shame doesn't vanish just because you tell it it's not real. We're going to go see her, I said. Okay. We'll bring her the cocoa mix she likes, Emma suggested, her face softening a little. Okay. We drove to Grandma Ruth's mid-morning. The world felt quiet, as if it was still recovering from Christmas. I knocked. Waited. Knocked again. No answer. I tried calling her from the porch. Still nothing. Maybe she's sleeping, Emma offered. Maybe, I said, though my hand was already moving toward my key ring. Grandma had given me a spare key for emergencies, her definition of emergency including situations where she didn't answer her phone and I got annoying. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment was too quiet. Not the old person napping kind of quiet. Empty quiet. I moved through the living room, calling her name. No response. Then I saw what was missing. Her wheelchair wasn't by the wall where it always sat. The blanket she used every night was gone. A small bag by the door, gone. My breath caught. Emma's voice came from behind me, small and trembling. Where is she? I don't know, I said, my own voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. I walked outside, hands shaking, and went straight to the neighbor across the hall. She opened the door in her robe, hair clipped back, wearing that expression people get when they're about to say something you won't like. Oh, honey, she said before I could speak. Your mother was here. My stomach dropped. When? Early, she said. Like, morning early. I was taking my trash out. They had a car down front. Did Grandma go with them? I asked, hating how controlled and polite my voice sounded, like I was asking about a package delivery. The neighbor hesitated. They had her chair. Your mother was talking fast. Your grandmother didn't look happy. Did she say where they were taking her? I pressed. The neighbor shook her head. No. I didn't hear that part. I'm sorry. Of course she didn't. People like my mother don't announce where they're taking you when you don't have a choice. I thanked the neighbor anyway, apparently, I'm the kind of person who says thank you while her life is imploding. Then I walked back into Grandma's apartment and stood there for half a second, trying to remember how to breathe. Emma was by the doorway, gripping the Cocoa Mix box like it was a weapon. Did they? She started. I don't know, I said. And then, because she's 11 and her brain goes to strange places, I added immediately, she's alive. She's okay. We're going to find her. I didn't even believe my own calm voice. I just needed her to borrow it. I called my mom, straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I called my dad. Voicemail. I stood in the hallway outside Grandma's place, staring at my phone like if I glared hard enough, it would start behaving. Emma tugged my sleeve. Maybe they took her to their house. That was the first sensible idea anyone had said all morning. So we drove. The whole way there, I kept checking my mirrors like the world had suddenly become unsafe in a way I couldn't name. Emma sat quietly, eyes fixed on her lap, and I could feel her trying to be good so I wouldn't fall apart. When we pulled into my parents' driveway, I didn't even turn the engine off the normal way. I just killed it and got out. I knocked hard. My mother opened the door like she'd been expecting me, her face already set for battle. Where is Grandma? I asked, eyes narrowed. Lower your voice, she snapped. I stared at her. Where is Grandma? She's fine, my mother said sharply. And you're not barging in here to upset her. I'm not here to argue, I said, my voice doing that cold thing it does when I'm trying not to explode in front of a child. I'm here to see my grandmother. My mother stepped into the doorway like a bouncer. After what you did. I didn't do anything, I said. Except come home to my kid sitting alone with burned food because you wouldn't let her inside. Don't start, my mother hissed. I'm not starting, I said. I'm finishing. Emma stood behind me, very still. My mother glanced at her, then looked away like eye contact might make her feel something. Your grandmother is resting. She doesn't need your drama. Then let her tell me that, I said. Let me hear it from her. My mother's lips pressed tight. No. That single word was the moment everything changed. Not because I expected her to be reasonable, I know her, but because she was blocking me from even seeing Grandma. That wasn't family drama. That was control. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. My mother's face twisted. Are you serious? Yes, I said, without blinking. I'm serious? She made a sound like I was embarrassing her, which, honestly, was a nice break from her usual hobby of embarrassing me. I told the dispatcher exactly what I knew. My grandmother was missing from her home. Her mobility equipment and belongings were gone. My mother had taken her early that morning, and my family was refusing to let me confirm she was okay, or even speak to her. I didn't give a speech. I didn't theorize. I just stated the facts. Emma's hand slid into mine while we waited. Small. Cold. Trusting. When the officers arrived, my mother immediately switched into her I pay taxes voice. Oh, good, she said brightly, like this was a neighborhood meeting. There's been a misunderstanding. The officer didn't smile. We need to see your grandmother. My mother's face tightened. She's resting. We still need to see her, he said, same tone, not rude, not negotiable. My mother stalled just long enough to make my heart pound against my ribs, then stepped aside like she was being personally oppressed. Grandma was in the back room, in her wheelchair, blanket across her lap, eyes sharp. The second she saw me, something in my chest unclenched so hard it almost hurt. Relief hit first, then anger, right behind it. Emma made a small sound and stepped forward before I could stop her. Grandma reached out and took her hand as if she'd been waiting for that specific proof of life. There you are, Grandma said, her voice rough. Emma nodded, tears already forming. I thought you were mad. Grandma's eyes flashed. I'm mad at the right people. One of the officers crouched slightly. Ma'am, are you okay? Are you here because you want to be? Grandma didn't hesitate. No. My mother jumped in. She's confused. Grandma turned her head slowly and said, if you interrupt me again, I'm adding it to the list. The officer looked back at Grandma. Do you want to leave? Yes, Grandma said. Now. My mother's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. It was like watching someone realize their favorite puppet had learned to cut its own strings. The officers didn't lecture anyone. They didn't give a courtroom monologue. They just made space, literally and figuratively. They made it clear Grandma could leave. And when she rolled past my mother, she didn't even look at her. That silence said more than any yelling ever could. I got Grandma into my car. Emma climbed in beside her without being asked and held her hand like she was anchoring her to the planet. Grandma looked at me and said, call my lawyer. We did. He agreed to see us that same day. He didn't sugarcoat it. He looked at me and said, here's what your family has been calling a gift. He slid a folder across the desk. The house isn't in your parents' names, he said. It's owned by Grandma's living trust. Your parents were listed as beneficiaries, meaning they were set to receive it after Grandma dies. But while Grandma is alive, she can change the beneficiaries. My stomach dropped. So, they'd been acting like it already belonged to them. They've been acting like a lot of things, Grandma muttered. Her lawyer didn't even blink. Grandma could also change how her other assets were distributed, her savings, her accounts, everything. Same idea. Beneficiaries could be updated. Grandma tapped the arm of her wheelchair. Good, she said silently, because they don't get a reward for turning a child away at the door. The lawyer asked a few straightforward questions, calm, respectful, just confirming that she understood what she was signing and that no one was pressuring her. Grandma answered like she was personally offended, as if the world needed proof she still had a brain. Then he printed what needed printing. Grandma signed, witnesses signed, pages were initialed, and just like that, the names my parents thought were carved in stone weren't. My name went where theirs used to be. Emma's future was protected right alongside it, because Grandma wasn't just angry. She was deliberate. Emma sat close the whole time, quiet, holding Grandma's hand as if she feared someone might try to drag her away again. When it was done, Grandma looked at her lawyer and said, "Now I want them kept away from me." He nodded once, already reaching for another set of documents. "We'll put that in writing, too, and we'll start the process to get them out of the house." Grandma turned her sharp gaze on me. "I gave them space," she said. "They used it to shrink a child." Emma's eyes filled, but this time she didn't look ashamed. She looked relieved. Grandma squeezed her fingers. "Next Christmas," she told her, "you're not standing outside anyone's door." Fast forward to next Christmas. Emma and I are in the house my parents used to call theirs. Not because I wanted a trophy, but because Grandma wanted the truth reflected in paperwork. The place is worth about $350,000, and she moved in with us after everything went down. We made it truly livable for someone in a wheelchair, ramp, wider doorways, grab bars, a bedroom on the main floor. Funny how not enough space magically becomes plenty of space when you're not using it to punish people. Grandma also had about $200,000 in savings. She changed the beneficiaries on all of it. Part went into an emergency cushion for her care. The rest went exactly where she wanted it, a college fund for Emma and a future she doesn't have to beg for. My parents got exactly what they earned, nothing. They tried calling, apologizing, blaming, rearranging the story like that could change the truth. I didn't answer. Emma is different now, quieter, calmer, but not the make myself small so I don't get rejected kind of quiet. And Grandma? Still sharp, still stubborn, and still very pleased with herself. So tell me, did I go too far, or not far enough?